Sometimes, the price of family comes as a sudden midnight invoice. My sister did not realize that after 12 years as her endless cash machine, I had learned to spot the truth behind her lies. You think this is about a ruined Sweet 16? Not at all. This is how I used exactly $7,200 to set an inescapable trap and burn her fake empire to the ground. Hello and welcome back to Maya Revenge Stories. We are so incredibly grateful for your continued support and time. Unfortunately, YouTube has recently disabled our channel's monetization, leaving us without the budget to keep bringing you these narratives. If you enjoy today's story, please consider supporting us by joining our Patreon channel, where you can listen to exclusive real-life stories that are even longer, feature highly detailed situations we cannot publish on YouTube, and include multiple emotional voice actors bringing the characters to life. You can join by scanning the QR code on your screen or by clicking the Patreon link in the video description or comment section. Now, let us dive into today's story, told from the perspective of Victoria Hill. At exactly 6:00 in the morning, the sharp chime of a text message shattered the absolute silence of my apartment in Austin, Texas. I was already awake, nursing a black coffee and reviewing a forensic audit file, when the notification flashed across my screen. It was the family group chat. My older sister, Savannah, had sent a frantic, emotionally charged paragraph demanding an immediate wire transfer of $7,200. The stated purpose for this sudden financial emergency was supposedly to secure the venue for her daughter Harper's dream Sweet 16 party. I set my coffee mug down slowly, my eyes scanning the text not as a sister, but through the lens of my profession. I am an investigative data analyst at Nexus Vault Analytics. My daily life consists of tracking illicit financial flows, dismantling shell companies, and unearthing sophisticated fraud schemes masked by layers of corporate jargon. I hunt for the hidden truth buried deep inside complex financial structures. So, when I look at a sudden, desperate demand for thousands of dollars at dawn, I do not feel sympathy. I feel a deep, clinical suspicion. The dichotomy between Savannah and me could not be more extreme if we had been born on different planets. Savannah is 36. Yet she operates with the financial maturity of a reckless teenager. She plays the role of the flawless, affluent suburban mother on Instagram to absolute perfection. Her social media feeds are a meticulously curated gallery of designer handbags, organic juice cleanses, and wide, blindingly white smiles. Yet, behind those expensive digital filters, she is perpetually drowning in catastrophic, crushing debt. I am a 34-year-old single woman who values quiet consistency and hard facts. I do not have a public social media presence. Instead of curating a fake life, I have spent the better part of the last decade acting as a silent, unappreciated crisis manager for my family. I am the one who quietly bails Savannah out when her credit cards are maxed out, plugging the endless financial black holes she creates, while our parents conveniently look the other way and praise her for being such a devoted mother. My phone vibrated violently against the desk. Savannah was now flooding the chat with a barrage of glossy, high-resolution images. She sent pictures of a lavish, incredibly modern luxury event center with floor-to-ceiling windows, towering floral arrangements overflowing with exotic white blooms, and a ridiculous multi-tiered champagne tower. A champagne tower for a 16-year-old girl's birthday celebration. It was a textbook psychological manipulation tactic. She was trying to overwhelm my rational brain with the visual aesthetics of a fantasy lifestyle, desperately attempting to guilt me into funding a spectacular illusion that she had absolutely no business hosting. Exactly 15 minutes later, my phone rang. It was not another text. The caller ID displayed Marcus, our father. I answered the call, already knowing the exact script he was about to read. His voice came through the receiver carrying that familiar, heavy, authoritative tone he always weaponized whenever he needed to protect his golden child. "Victoria," he stated bluntly, bypassing any form of a standard morning greeting, "your sister is under a severe amount of stress right now trying to make this day special. Do not be selfish about this. Just do this for your niece. Harper deserves a beautiful memory, and you have the means to help. My fingers tightened around the smooth metal of my phone. With my free hand, I pulled up my secure banking portal on my laptop, staring at the exact balance sitting in my high-yield savings account. Every single dollar in that account was the direct result of grueling, 80-hour work weeks and relentless dedication. It was my seed money, the essential capital I was meticulously gathering to finally resign from the corporate world and open my own independent financial consulting firm. A powerful wave of bitter resentment washed over me, a suffocating heat rising in my chest at the sheer audacity of his demand. They always used Harper as the ultimate emotional pawn, knowing I had a soft spot for my brilliant, quiet niece. But this time, the numbers felt incredibly wrong. I took a slow, deeply measured breath, forcing my rising anger into a tight, impenetrable box. I did not yell at him. I did not waste my breath arguing about fairness or responsibility. I simply channeled the ice-cold, unwavering composure I utilized during the most hostile corporate audits. "I will look into it," I replied, my voice completely devoid of any warmth or emotion, and I immediately ended the call. I did not initiate the wire transfer. Instead, I leaned back in my ergonomic desk chair, cracked my knuckles, and composed a highly specific, carefully worded response to my sister. "I need the official, itemized invoice from the venue. Savannah," I typed, making sure my digital tone was strictly transactional and completely devoid of familial warmth. If I am going to move this significant amount of capital on such short notice, I require a proper paper trail for my tax declaration purposes. Send the original PDF document directly from the vendor, and I will process the funding request. Predictably, the simple request for basic financial documentation triggered an immediate digital meltdown. My screen lit up with a rapid succession of hostile messages. She accused me of being completely heartless, of actively trying to ruin a magical milestone over trivial corporate paperwork, and of prioritizing my accountant over my own flesh and blood. She claimed the event planner was breathing down her neck and that my delay was causing her severe emotional distress. I did not engage with the dramatics. I did not type a single word in defense. I simply waited, letting the silence stretch out, knowing her desperation for the money would eventually outweigh her manufactured outrage. 35 minutes later, an email finally arrived in my inbox. It contained a single attachment. It was a PDF document, but the very moment I opened it on my secondary monitor, my professional instincts flared into high alert. The file was an absolute mess. It looked like the digital equivalent of a ransom note. The margins were aggressively cropped, deliberately eliminating the standard header and footer metadata that legitimate hospitality businesses always include. The text alignment on the itemized columns was just a fraction of a millimeter off, suggesting it had been hastily altered, or perhaps screenshotted, pasted into a word processor, and converted back. But the most glaring anomaly was the venue name printed at the top of the distorted page. The location was not some fairy tale banquet hall or a trendy suburban teen club. It was the Onyx Lounge. I knew this establishment very well. In my line of work, I had audited several tech startups that hosted high stakes, late-night corporate fundraising galas there. It is a strictly high-end, exclusive venue located in the downtown financial district, characterized by dark leather booths, dim amber lighting, and a relentless door policy. More importantly, I knew for an absolute, verifiable fact that the Onyx Lounge has a strict 21 and older age requirement on weekends. They do not host Sweet 16 celebrations. They do not allow minors on the premises after 5 o'clock in the evening under any circumstances. The pieces of Savannah's fabricated puzzle were refusing to lock together. I picked up my phone and dialed my niece's number, making sure to consciously soften my voice to mask the intense, predatory investigation mode I had just slipped into. I needed to isolate the primary variable in this equation. Harper picked up on the third ring. "Hey, sweetie," I said cheerfully, playing the role of the oblivious, supportive aunt. "I was just looking at some gift options for your big 16th birthday next weekend. I wanted to see what you were hoping to get, or if you needed anything special for the big night. There was a long, heavy silence on the other end of the line. When Harper finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper, carrying a profound weight of resignation that completely broke my heart. "Aunt Victoria," she murmured softly, sounding utterly exhausted. "I am not even going to be in the city for my birthday. Mom packed my duffel bags yesterday. She is making me go on a week-long camping trip with Dad's relatives up in the next state over. I leave on Thursday morning." I felt the air completely leave my lungs, but I forced my tone to remain perfectly level, keeping the interrogation completely invisible. "A camping trip. But what about your big party? Your mom told me she was planning something huge for you. She showed me pictures of a venue." Harper let out a frustrated, shaky sigh. "Mom is just making things up again. You know I absolutely hate loud, crowded parties. I never once asked for a huge event. I told her months ago that the absolute only thing I wanted for my 16th birthday was to spend the weekend volunteering at the local animal rescue shelter down the street. I just wanted to help walk the rescue dogs, Aunt Victoria. But she said that was not aesthetic enough for a milestone birthday, told me I was being weird, and ordered me to just go away with Dad's family so she could have the house to herself for the weekend." "I understand, Harper," I said gently, a cold fury beginning to crystallize in my veins. "Do not worry about a thing. You just try to have a good time on your trip. Okay, I will talk to you soon." The moment I ended the call, the temperature in my apartment seemed to drop 10 degrees. I sat in the quiet glow of my monitor, the truth settling over me with absolute clarity. The $7,200 was never meant for my niece, the floral arrangements, the champagne tower, the premium venue reservation. None of it had a single thing to do with Harper. Savannah was attempting to execute a massive, expensive fraud against her own family, and she was trying to use my hard-earned savings to bankroll it. As I stared at the poorly cropped PDF on my screen, the residual anger evaporated completely. It was replaced by a cold, calculating, and laser-focused resolve. My sister had finally crossed the line from irresponsible to malicious. If she wanted me to fund a mystery event at the Onyx Lounge, I would gladly insert my credit card into the machine, but I was going to make sure she got exactly what she deserved. A very bold, incredibly ruthless plan began to take shape in my mind, and for the first time that morning, I smiled. I booted up my secure workstation, routing my connection through the encrypted mainframe of Nexus Vault Analytics. Savannah truly believed she was a mastermind by clumsily cropping a document, but she possessed absolutely zero understanding of how digital financial architecture actually operates. Every single commercial invoice generated by a reputable hospitality vendor contains a unique, microscopic alphanumeric transaction string embedded deeply within the file properties. I initiated a rapid spectrum analysis on the damaged file she sent me, isolating the residual metadata that managed to survive her frantic editing. Within exactly 90 seconds, the software extracted the precise 14-character booking sequence. I took that sequence and fed it directly into our proprietary corporate database, entirely bypassing the public-facing website of the Onyx Lounge. I infiltrated their raw scheduling ledger. My fingers hammered against the mechanical keyboard, the sharp, rhythmic clanking echoing loudly throughout the quiet space of my living room. I hit the enter key with force and watched as my monitor populated with the unredacted, official event manifest. The name listed on the primary reservation was not Harper Hill. There was absolutely no mention of a Sweet 16, no reference to a teenager, and zero indication of a wholesome family gathering. Instead, glaring back at me in bold, capitalized letters, the official event title read, "Diamond Partner Launch, Savannah's Lifestyle Investment Fund." I stared blankly at the glowing screen for a long moment before a sharp, cynical laugh escaped my throat. I opened a new secure browser tab and initiated a deep background investigation into the specific phrasing of that title. The search results flooded my screen instantaneously, painting a terrifyingly clear, vivid picture of my sister's latest catastrophic disaster. Savannah had not just irresponsibly maxed out her credit cards this time. She had been completely swallowed whole by a highly aggressive, notoriously predatory multi-level marketing scheme. This specific organization was well known among financial investigators for preying on vulnerable, deeply insecure individuals obsessed with projecting an aura of wealth. They peddled entirely worthless digital empowerment packages and relentlessly pushed their members to recruit new victims into their ever-expanding downline, to reach the highly coveted Diamond Partner tier. A member had to secure a massive influx of fresh capital and host an opulent, high-profile recruitment gala to successfully dazzle potential investors into surrendering their money. The horrifying reality settled over me like a heavy lead blanket. My sister was actively using the sacred, emotional milestone of her own daughter's 16th birthday to extort exactly $7,200 from me. She desperately needed that specific amount of capital to rent a luxury downtown lounge, purchase expensive champagne, and project a completely fabricated, flawless image of immense wealth. It was not just a pathetic cry for attention. It was a calculated, malicious financial crime cleverly masked as maternal devotion. Before I could even begin to process the sheer audacity of her manipulation, my phone erupted with an incoming call, violently vibrating across my desk. It was my father again. This time, I did not even have the chance to offer a polite greeting. "What on earth is wrong with you? Victoria?" His voice boomed through the speaker, trembling heavily with self-righteous fury and misplaced disappointment. "Your sister just called your mother in absolute hysterics. She is completely sobbing, saying you are purposely torturing her over a few meaningless tax documents. She is terrified you are going to purposely ruin her daughter's special day just to prove some petty point about your money. Why must you always be so relentlessly difficult? Why can you not just support your family without turning every single favor into a hostile corporate negotiation?" I sat perfectly still, listening to his heavy, angry breathing on the other end of the line. A year ago, or perhaps even a month ago, I would have desperately tried to defend my character. I would have immediately forwarded him the raw data, frantically explained the intricate mechanics of a multi-level marketing pyramid scheme, and practically begged him to finally see the ugly truth about his golden child. But as I sat there, bathed in the harsh, clinical blue light of my analytical monitors, a profound and chilling clarity washed over my entire being. If I told him the truth right in this moment, he would not believe a single word I said. He would instantly accuse me of manipulating the data just to make Savannah look bad. Savannah would immediately pivot her strategy, loudly crying that she was simply trying to build an independent business to provide a better, brighter future for Harper. Somehow, despite holding all the evidence, I would still be painted as the jealous, unsupportive villain of the story. Verbal exposure is completely useless against a lifetime of blind, enabling favoritism. Trying to explain the trap would only give the rat enough time to chew off its own leg and escape. I swallowed down the sharp, burning urge to scream the truth at him. I firmly locked my emotions away inside a cold, impenetrable mental vault. "You are absolutely right, Dad," I said, ensuring my voice remained eerily calm, smooth, and completely devoid of any resistance. "I was definitely overthinking the tax implications. I will handle the venue directly. Tell Savannah to stop crying and focus on her dress. I am taking care of everything." "That is all we ever asked of you," he huffed heavily, sounding instantly relieved and clearly satisfied that his stern scolding had effectively put his difficult, stubborn daughter back in her proper place. He abruptly ended the call without another word. I placed the phone down gently on the smooth glass surface of my desk. They wanted a grand party. They wanted an unforgettable, lavish spectacle funded entirely by my hard-earned bank account. They were going to get exactly that. But I was not going to simply cut off the money supply and walk away. I was going to let stark, undeniable reality deliver a devastating public blow that no amount of fake tears could ever wash away. I opened a fresh digital notepad and began drafting an ironclad strategy, meticulously setting up an irreversible board state where my sister would be brutally forced to unmask her own deception in front of the exact audience she was so desperately trying to impress. I picked up my phone and navigated back to the family group chat. I needed to construct the perfect message. One that appeared incredibly supportive on the surface but effectively stripped my sister of all her financial autonomy. I typed out my response, carefully measuring every single word to ensure there was absolutely no room for negotiation. I have arranged everything. I sent to the group. I will pay the event organizer directly so Savannah does not have to worry about taxes or any complicated vendor invoices. I want her to just focus on enjoying the big day. I watched the typing indicator bubble pop up under Savannah's name, disappear, and pop up again. I knew exactly what was happening in her mind. She was absolutely seething. The entire objective of her elaborate scam was to get raw, untraceable cash deposited directly into her checking account so she could distribute it among her upline recruiters. Having me pay the venue directly completely severed her access to the actual money. However, with the event scheduled for that very weekend, she was completely out of time and entirely out of options. She could not refuse my offer without exposing the fact that the party was a sham. A few minutes later, she sent back a short message loaded with excessive heart emojis, accepting the arrangement while undoubtedly continuing to dream about her shining, glamorous ceremony. She thought she had still won the venue. She was severely mistaken. I opened the official vendor contract I had pulled from the database and scrolled down to the legal fine print. In my decade of auditing corporate events, I have learned that whoever holds the purse strings legally controls the entire narrative. Right there in Section 4, Clause B, was the standard primary financial sponsor provision. It clearly stated that the individual supplying the capital for the reservation possessed full executive authority to amend, alter, or cancel any catering and decor arrangements up to 48 hours before the scheduled start time. I picked up my phone and dialed the direct management line for the Onyx Lounge. A man with a crisp, overly polite voice answered, introducing himself as Julian, the senior events coordinator. "Good morning, Julian," I said, projecting the exact same icy, authoritative tone I used when dismantling fraudulent executives in boardrooms. "My name is Victoria Hill. I am calling regarding the event booked under Savannah's Lifestyle Investment Fund for this upcoming weekend. I am the primary financial sponsor funding this entire reservation. I am processing a direct wire transfer of exactly $7,200 to your accounting department as we speak. However, we are executing a massive pivot on the event aesthetics. I need to make sweeping modifications to the catering, the floor plan, and the vendor list." Julian hesitated for a brief second, likely surprised by the sudden change in direction, but the confirmation of an immediate, guaranteed payment of over $7,000 quickly smoothed over any of his professional reservations. "Of course, Miss Hill, you are the registered sponsor. What kind of modifications are we looking at?" "First, we are entirely scrapping the current catering menu," I instructed, pulling up Savannah's original ridiculous list. "Cancel the imported yellowtail sushi towers, cancel the artisan cheese boards, most importantly, cancel the 3-tier champagne fountain and every single drop of premium liquor on that invoice. Instead, I want you to allocate a portion of the budget to order 40 large pepperoni and cheese pizzas from the local parlor down the street. Replace the champagne with large metal tubs filled entirely with crushed ice and assorted canned soft drinks." I could practically hear Julian's eyebrows raise through the phone, but he maintained his professional composure. "Understood. Pizzas and soft drinks. And what about the decor? Miss Hill, we currently have a team scheduled to construct a massive floral archway and several step and repeat photography backdrops featuring the Diamond Partner corporate logos." "Dismantle them," I ordered sharply, relishing the absolute power of those 2 words. "I do not want a single corporate logo, promotional banner, or recruitment flyer anywhere in that building. Strip the room down to its bare, standard furniture. Remove the stage and the presentation microphone. This is no longer a corporate investment launch. We are transforming the space for a different demographic." After finalizing the drastic downgrades with Julian, the total cost for the venue rental, the basic staff, and the pizza amounted to roughly $2,000. That left me with exactly $5,200 of my original budget sitting perfectly untouched. I was not about to put that money back into my savings account. I had promised my father I would spend the full amount on a memorable event, and I always keep my promises. I opened a new search tab and located the exact contact information for the Sunny Paws Animal Rescue, the specific local shelter Harper had talked about during our phone call. I dialed their main office line, and a cheerful volunteer answered. "Hello," I started, allowing genuine warmth to enter my voice for the first time all day. "I know this is incredibly short notice, but I am looking to host an emergency adoption and fundraising drive this weekend. I have secured a massive premium event space in the downtown financial district, completely paid for. I also have exactly $5,200 that I would like to present to your shelter as a direct, upfront cash donation. In exchange, I need you to pack up your transport vans. Bring as many of your most adorable, adoptable rescue dogs as you can safely manage, and set up your portable puppy pens right in the middle of a luxury lounge." The volunteer on the other end literally gasped, completely overwhelmed by the sudden windfall of cash and the bizarre, highly unconventional offer. Once I assured her it was not a prank and forwarded the binding venue confirmation, she eagerly agreed, promising to bring an entire team of handlers, folding tables for donation sign-ups, and over a dozen energetic rescue dogs desperately in need of loving homes. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the completed logistical puzzle on my screen. I had successfully weaponized my sister's own vanity against her. She was anticipating a room filled with gullible investors, flowing champagne, and an atmosphere designed to elevate her to the top of a fraudulent pyramid. Instead, she and her upline executives were going to walk in expecting a diamond-tier luxury gala, only to be completely ambushed by a chaotic teenager birthday setup, the overpowering smell of greasy pepperoni pizza, and a massive, barking pack of stray dogs. The trap was perfectly set. The wires were completely hidden, and all that was left to do was wait for the sun to rise on her glorious, manufactured empire. The night before the event felt like the suffocating, heavy silence that always precedes a massive atmospheric pressure drop. My phone buzzed relentlessly on the kitchen island, illuminating the dark apartment with a constant stream of notifications. The family group chat had devolved into a nauseating echo chamber of excessive, manufactured praise. Savannah was practically vibrating with digital arrogance. She uploaded a meticulously edited photograph of herself wearing a floor-length, heavily sequined emerald evening gown. The caption beneath the photo was a masterclass in multi-level marketing delusion. It read, "Ready to step into my ultimate power tomorrow and unveil my most brilliant success yet. Diamond status, here I come." She peppered the end of the sentence with rocket ships and gemstone emojis. Shortly after her post went live, my parents chimed in. My mother sent a barrage of clapping hands, while my father sent a direct text message strictly to me. It read, "We are very proud of you. Victoria, you are finally learning how to put your own selfishness aside and act like a real supportive family member." I read the text, my face illuminated by the harsh blue glow of my monitor, and I simply turned my phone face down. I sat completely alone in my quiet, unlit living room, nursing a freshly brewed cup of dark roast coffee. I did not feel angry anymore. I felt perfectly, dangerously calm. I spent the next hour reviewing every single digital authorization form, verifying the exact routing numbers for the massive charitable donation, and staring with a deep, genuine smile at the final confirmation email sent by the Sunny Paws Animal Rescue Coordinator. Everything was locked into place. I left my apartment long before the sun even considered rising. At 5:45 in the morning, I pulled my sedan into the desolate parking lot of a massive, illuminated highway rest stop, situated exactly halfway between Austin and the rural county where my former brother-in-law lived. I parked near the flickering neon sign of an all-night diner and waited. 10 minutes later, a battered pickup truck pulled up alongside me. My former brother-in-law, who was completely exhausted by Savannah's endless demands and more than happy to aid in my secret rebellion, gave me a quick nod from the driver's seat. The passenger door opened, and Harper hopped out, clutching her overnight duffel bag. She looked incredibly confused, her hair tied in a messy bun, wearing an oversized gray hoodie. I had sworn her father to absolute secrecy, only telling him that I was intercepting the camping trip to give his daughter the exact birthday she actually wanted. "Aunt Victoria, what is going on?" Harper asked, climbing into my passenger seat and buckling her seatbelt. "Dad just woke me up an hour ago, threw my bag in the truck, and told me you were kidnapping me for the weekend. Are we actually going back to the city?" "We are going back to the city," I confirmed, shifting the car into drive and pulling back onto the dark interstate. "Your mother thinks you are currently chopping firewood in the middle of nowhere, but today is your sweet 16, Harper, and I promise you, you are going to get a party that absolutely no one in this family will ever forget." At exactly 7:30 in the morning, my car pulled up to the glass facade of the Onyx Lounge. The downtown financial district was completely empty, bathed in the crisp, pale light of the early morning. I escorted Harper through the heavy double doors and immediately guided her into a shadowed, elevated VIP booth situated in the far back corner of the massive room. From this hidden vantage point, we had a perfect, unobstructed view of the entire main floor. The space was a beautiful, organized disaster. Julian, the venue manager, was nervously directing a team of confused waiters who were busy hauling massive, greasy cardboard pizza boxes onto the expensive mahogany tasting tables. Right next to them, a small army of volunteers in brightly colored shelter t-shirts were rapidly assembling heavy metal exercise pens over the imported rugs. The sharp, chaotic sounds of a dozen excited rescue dogs barking and whining echoed loudly off the high, acoustic ceilings. I stood right behind my niece, placing both of my hands firmly on her shoulders. Harper was completely speechless, her hands covering her mouth as she stared down at the furry chaos unfolding below us. The atmosphere in the room was pulled completely taut, humming with the agonizing, electric tension of a deeply wound clock. The digital display above the bar flashed 7:45. We only had 15 minutes left until Savannah and her elite circle of imaginary investors walked blindly through those grand front doors. At exactly 8 o'clock in the morning, the heavy tinted glass doors of the Onyx Lounge swung open. Savannah glided into the foyer, flanked by a small army of sharply dressed women in tailored suits. These were her so-called diamond partners, the top-tier executives of her fraudulent pyramid, all expecting to be dazzled by a magnificent display of wealth. Savannah herself was a walking spectacle, her emerald sequined gown shimmering violently under the overhead lights. She had a perfectly practiced, incredibly haughty smile plastered across her face, ready to welcome her investors to her majestic empire. Then, she crossed the threshold into the main hall, and that flawless smile shattered into a million jagged pieces. The entire entourage stopped dead in their tracks. Instead of the gentle, sophisticated strumming of a hired string quartet, the room was echoing with the chaotic, joyful symphony of 20 excited rescue dogs. Instead of breathing in the scent of imported orchids and expensive perfume, they were hit by the overwhelming, greasy aroma of melted mozzarella and hot pepperoni, and instead of a towering champagne fountain, a massive, brightly colored vinyl banner hung directly above the main bar. In giant, playful bubble letters, it proudly announced, "Happy Sweet 16, Harper. Welcome to the Sunny Paws Adoption Drive." I watched from the shadows as the color completely drained from my sister's face. Her eyes darted wildly around the room, taking in the metal exercise pens, the shelter volunteers in their casual t-shirts, and a group of local teenagers happily shoving slices of pizza into their mouths. "What is this?" Savannah shrieked, her voice cracking, completely losing the polished, professional facade she had spent weeks cultivating. "Julian, where is the venue manager? Where is my corporate event? My high-tier clients are standing right here." She screamed the words so loudly they echoed over the barking dogs, and her timing could not have been more poetic, because at that exact second, my parents walked through the front doors, stepping right up behind Savannah's bewildered entourage. My father stopped cold, his hands still holding a neatly wrapped birthday present. He stared at his golden child, completely bewildered. "Corporate event?" he asked, his deep voice carrying over the sudden lull in the room. "Client Savannah, what on earth are you talking about? This is supposed to be your daughter's 16th birthday celebration." Savannah froze, her eyes widening in absolute terror as she spun around to face our parents. She opened her mouth, desperately searching for a lie, a distraction, any possible way to manipulate the narrative, but she was completely out of time. I stepped out of the elevated VIP booth and slowly walked down the illuminated staircase. The thick, unredacted corporate folder felt heavy in my right hand. The entire room fell into a stunned silence as I approached the center of the hall. I did not yell. I did not lose my temper. I simply walked up to the main tasting table, swiped a stack of paper napkins out of the way, and slammed the thick stack of financial documents onto the wood. "There is no birthday party, Dad," I said, my voice ringing out with crystal clear, surgical precision. "There never was. Savannah is currently sinking in a predatory multi-level marketing scheme. That paperwork right there proves she registered this entire morning as a lifestyle investment fund recruitment gala. She tried to extort $7,200 from my savings account by using her own child as a human shield, just so she could impress these women behind her and climb the ranks of a pyramid scam." My father looked down at the highlighted contracts, the undeniable proof of the venue registration, and the promotional materials I had printed out. He looked back up at Savannah, waiting for her to deny it, waiting for her to provide a reasonable excuse, but Savannah was speechless, trembling in her ridiculous gown, looking like a cornered animal. Before my parents could even process the magnitude of the betrayal, Harper came running down the stairs behind me. She completely ignored her mother, completely ignored her grandparents, and ran straight past the stunned crowd. She dropped directly to her knees in front of a wire pen holding 3 golden retriever puppies, tears of absolute joy streaming down her face. She looked up at me, her face glowing with a genuine, pure happiness I had not seen in years. "Aunt Victoria, this is the best day of my entire life. Thank you. Thank you so much." That single sentence delivered the fatal blow. It completely obliterated Savannah's tearful claims that Harper desperately wanted a lavish, expensive milestone celebration. The reality was staring my parents right in the face. Their precious, perfect daughter had packed her own child off to the woods just to fund a scam, and the heartless, difficult aunt had actually given the teenager the exact dream she asked for. The women in the tailored suits exchanged disgusted glances. Realizing there was no money to be made and no luxurious gala to enjoy, they simply turned around and walked out of the building without saying a single word, abandoning my sister entirely. My father looked at Savannah one last time. For the first time in his entire life, he had absolutely nothing to say in her defense. The absolute blind trust he held for her completely collapsed in an instant. He slowly put the wrapped gift down on a chair, took my weeping mother by the arm, and turned his back on his favorite child. They walked out of the venue in ultimate, crushing shame, leaving Savannah standing completely alone in the center of the room. She finally broke down, dropping to the floor and sobbing hysterically, her wails echoing against the high ceilings. I did not feel an ounce of pity. I turned around, walked over to Harper, and gently tapped her on the shoulder. "Come on, kid," I smiled. "Let us go get some celebratory ice cream before we come back to play with these dogs." As I walked out into the bright morning sun and clicked the unlock button on my key fob, I listened to the faint sound of my sister's hopeless crying fading away behind the heavy glass doors. For 12 long years, I had believed that family was a debt that had to be paid at all costs. But as I pulled out of the parking lot and honked my horn, listening to Harper laugh beside me, I realized the absolute truth. The exact moment I cut off the endless flow of money was the exact moment I successfully bought my own life back. Thank you so much for joining me today and listening to this story. I would absolutely love to know where you are tuning in from. So please drop a comment below and say hello. If you enjoyed today's journey and want to help support the channel, please consider joining the Maya Revenge Stories Patreon. It is the absolute best place to hear our most exclusive, detailed, true stories that we simply cannot publish here on YouTube. You can easily join by scanning the QR code right here on your screen or by clicking the Patreon link provided in the description or the pinned comment below. Thank you again for your time, and I will see you in the next story.